Astral certainly here and looking to play. In Control, though, these guys have done it before on a different platform. Can they do it here?
The big thing for me is that In Control has nothing to lose. I mean, how could you feel like you have any pressure on you right now if you're In Control? Astral's the one that has to play with all that pressure on.
Yeah, they do, because what I think is, no, go ahead.
I mean, it happens. Astral right now, they've got control, but do they have control of the whole set? I think that's going to be the big story, is In Control are going to be able to find these streaks, and how long can they stay hot, because Astral has been the consistent squad.
I also think that the metas being very different is a big thing to be worried about here if you're Astral, because the PS4 League in general, it's a lot more Bakasura top picks. It's a lot more of those weird little off-meta things that are highly prioritized, a lot more Hunbats, things that aren't really quite seen as much on the PC or Xbox side. So Astral may be getting what they want, but maybe In Control will get what they want as well.
Well, first ban so far going to be the Control Mage. No Baron Samedi available for either team. He's been very strong on both platforms, just his ability to kind of maintain control, but he's not a Wolves-style character.
No, not at all.
So I think that's why we see Astral ban it away. They go, hey Wolves, can you play it? No, then screw it. We don't want to take it. Weezy right there on the screen. He's gonna figure out what he wants to do here. You know where he's from?
Where's that, Tom?
He's from Long Island, baby.
No way, man. Can't believe it.
All the bands done here, and get used to seeing the yellow Odin band.
No, that's perma-banned the sentiment. It's literally perma-banned.
If Wolves play it, do they auto-win the game?
I think so.
More or less, yeah. More or less, that's the way it works. Now that means that you're going to get a priority pick no matter what, and Erlong Shen is a pretty good one. Cerberus on the other side, talking about gods that are really, really heavily prioritized on PS4 where they may not be on other regions. Cerberus is a big one for me. They pick this early and often.
I'm not a goddess of mercy.
Freya's going to come through, one of my personal favorites.
I like that.
Just incredible power. In Control, they've got the Freya. You say you like that. What about it?
Does anybody out-pressure Freya now with the buff? I don't think so, right?
Not really.
Not really, no. And if you pair that with Cerberus in lane, you get that magical prot shred and the ability to clear their wave and play very aggressive early on. We see Splice do that a lot. We saw Space Station Gaming do that a lot on PC at the placement stages. That's a very potent duo lane if they decide to put Cerberus support.
Cerberus Freya, a famous classic combo.
I like the Jingwei because you could dash off of the Freya Wu. And the Rising, the past PC games look like it's popular right now.
I mentioned it before, Hunbats, the jungle of choice for In Control. First half of the picks done. Arlong Shen, Jingwei, and Raijin. The selection here for Astral. No real surprises there. Arlong Shen is out of control. Jingwei is very safe against Freya, and Baronix Raijin is just that good.
I think this Erlong is pretty flexible though here for Astral. I mean, you can give it to layers in the jungle, of course. That's where Erlong looks great. Deathwalker just single-handedly won a set basically with it in the solo lane. You know Wolves will be able to play that. I think you could still play it in support, and if Chapo's going to want to play aggressive, then Erlong Shen could be a great pick for them there.
I love the two bans coming out from In Control as well.
I'm actually confused.
Why is that?
Why would they ban Wukong and Kabrakan?
So the Wukong I don't know about, but the Kabrakan, I like the Kabrakan choice. I think this is a very Chapo-oriented support. He's very aggro, he's up in the opponent's face, and Layers has played this as well. So with Arlong Shen being a little bit maybe that's Wolves, I think that Kabrakan ban is really nice.
Now Ao Kuang's open, and that's something that if Chapo were in jungle would be snap locked. Probably not in the support role, but I'm sure Layers has it in the God pool. I think Achilles could look pretty attractive here. If you're on Astral Authority, you immediately start looking for those executes when you see a Khepri.
Right, you're just going down the list there. Is Thanatos relevant at all?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I don't think he's as good as either of the other two characters, but I think he's okay.
Oh,
right now?
The Ao Kuang?
Yeah, they're thinking about it. Astral giving it some time. What's the likelihood that Layers plays support for a game?
Zero. Absolutely zero. No way you're taking Layers out of the jungle. No way.
Layers turns back into KP.
Yeah,
That's what happens.
Now maybe we see a little bit of tank Ao Kuang in the support role. That's more likely. Okay. Hey, Haddix has made me a believer of solo tank Ao Kuang, so why not support?
You know what?
The double jungle?
That's actually, jokes aside, can we actually talk about that, Ryan?
Know your
enemy. Here's what I'll say. I'd rather have a support.
What about, I don't know, Jungle Poseidon?
This shall be a day
Bologna, a pressure pick, so it looks to me like it's going to be Erlong support.
Yeah.
With this sort of setup, you get enough magical damage now out of the Alquang in the jungle that you're not worried about being more physical. Again, aggressive in that support role. I think this fits Astral really well.
I like the Agni pick. Kobe played it the last lane, and he went off the last 2 games.
A lot of control coming out from this composition in general. No puns as far as the name is concerned, but Incontrol have brought all of that. Hunbats, Cerberus, Agni, all 3 of these characters are just going to look to control the battlefield, set up Freya.
And it's AoE damage that's critical as well. The 4 magical does concern me a little bit. Cerberus does mitigate some of those concerns with this extra corruption. There'll be Freya in the ADC, Agni in the mid lane. So 4 magical is a bit scary. It means that Chapo can build something like a Runic Shield or an Aquile and just really go off on this team.
At the same time, 4 magical isn't a death sentence like 4 physical can be. Itemization a little bit tougher.
Yeah, because there's less magic items, the magic defense items. Yeah.
Exactly, the niche items are there, but the pure defense is...
I don't know, I think that's the thing of the past. I mean, Oni Hunters is insane, Genji's is really good, and Kile, Runic Shield are both good. The whole Silver Talisman tree. I think that magic defense got a big buff recently, and so that does concern me a bit.
That'll certainly be a headline. Incontrol, they've got the control, as their namesake says. Astral, all about aggression. Who comes out on top? Pose that question to Taco and Finch.
Thanks, Tom, Ryan, and Transonics on the desk. Let's get right into the action. Astral up against Incontrol. Finch here and Taco going right into game 1. It's console time right here at the end of the day. You know it's going to be a big game.
It has to be a big game. I mean, it's been so long since we've had a real opportunity to see what Astral Authority is really all about. This team has been regarded as the #1 team in Xbox Smite for so
good reason.
long, and that's exactly, you are right on the money, Finch, for a good reason. They have looked absolutely dominant throughout the regular season, and I don't think they plan on slowing down anytime soon.
And you heard them talking about it on the desk. So much of it comes through Wolves and Layers. I mean, these guys, KP, Chaotic Preppers, whatever you want to call them, Layers is always just one of the best on the sticks at all times. He loves to play aggressive, loves to pick these high priority assassins and run the game from them. And Wolves is the same way. He oftentimes wins his matchup. Think back to Summerland. My man made Predators look bad, and Predators is insanely good. So, I mean, that's just how strong he can be at times.
But it's that unpredictability that Astral still manages to maintain throughout the years, and that is something that is exclusive to Wolves' playstyle alone.
Yeah.
Whatever he needs to pick, he will make sure to flex it for the team composition. But I think that Incontrol can bring something new to the board as well. I mean, this is coming from the PS4 side of things, and PS4 meta, while a little bit similar to Xbox and not necessarily similar entirely.
Yeah, I agree. They didn't have a ton of big differences in terms of gods that they liked or anything like that. It was just that, for the most part, it was slightly lower level of play. Incontrol, I would say, was the exception to that. You know, very much guided by Kobe, who's got a ton of experience from the Xbox as well. Was able to make sure this team was always a bit above everyone else. And we're starting to see some aggression from Astral over here in this duo lane. Chapo and Griffin Slays already looking good.
It's a new platform, but these aren't new players by any means. Kobe, Joltak, Outbound, they are all former members of that Xbox North America console scene. So it's not like they're completely running into the unknown here.
Right.
They are somewhat aware of some of the aggressive stances that Astral like to take. I definitely think that they're going to have to be very careful about their positioning, because with the pressure that Astral has chosen to draft for game 1 here, even the slightest misstep out of position could spell the end.
It does seem like a bit of a tough reward, doesn't it? They had the play-ins just to make it into the PS4 League. They played through the entire fall split. Then they had to play up against another team from Europe PS4, and their reward at the end of all of that, Astral Authority, right? Just like the best team on console right now, and it feels like one of the most consistent teams, particularly when we look towards Wolves and Layers, and Baronic's been here essentially all of Season 5 as well, so it's just a tough ask.
Already a little bit of poke, though, going on to Griffin. So you like to see that kind of stuff from Joltak, those aggressive pulls in from the Khepri, trying to abuse this Jingwei early on.
Trying to do something to slow her down in lane. Actually going in aggressive here is Griffin Slays, also Cyprexa, whichever you prefer for him, but he's making some big plays over in the dual lane, at least trying to. Not going to find much more there in the back end, but this Astral team is a team full of history, and they'll show some of that here as a bit of a wraparound coming through from Chapo as they find the knockup, trying to find first blood as well. Griffin finds it, and they want to go for the second one, aggressively forcing Joltek back into the tower.
Really nice autos there from Griffin, every single one of them on the money, and you can bet that the taunts are going to come out after. You already took down the Freya, and you start to get into your opponent's heads early on.
And there's more pressure over here on the solo side. No big surprise to see Wolves Wolves taking this Balone over to the solo lane and is already asserting his dominance. He wants to come stop the blue buff, where they actually had Raigaku come over to the jungler to try and defend it. The bludgeon should land and forces him away.
And that's not the only point of the map that's being focused out right now. Incontrol having to try and play defense on their red buff, and they're not going to be successful in that either. Shaolin hasn't had an opportunity to back just yet either, and it looks as though Wolves is going to get away with this one. So both blue buff and the red buff going in Astral Authority's favor.
And that's what happens when you have pressure all over the map. You can also find a very strong first blood. Let's actually go back and look at the respawn first blood they found over there in the duo lane. Strong plays from Griffin, but Chapo is the one that comes in from the jungle. He loops around and sets this up, kind of baits in Control.
And that's just one of those moments where if you're outbound in this situation, you have to be expecting that Erlang wraparound. It's so not unusual to see an Erlang look for those aggressive pathways.
Or any support, really, yeah.
And Freya is such an immobile hunter, especially at level 2. She probably doesn't have the banish just yet, probably a little bit more focus on just looking for the clear and the wave. A rather unfortunate early spill, though, because once you find the first kill against that Freya, it feels like it's a million times easier to find the second, third, and anything else that might follow.
Looks like we might have a quick pause coming out here from Wolves. We'll try and get everything situated with the players, but you're exactly right. When you're on this Freya, it really can be a setback when you're pushed back, especially because you've got the Erlang support in that lane that you're going up against Chapo piloting that one. You really can't afford to give away any extra pressure in that lane because Erlang so often is able to force it, just generate it on his own anyway.
Incontrol knew what they were headed into, though, right? You have to imagine that Astral are just going to be relentless in that early game pressure. When you see Erlang, Raijin, even the Bologna, you know that they want to centralize full lane control. That way they can look to play aggressively into the jungle, find those early red buff, blue buff, purple buff invades, whatever floats their boat, because the sooner you build up a lead, the more difficult it'll be for Incontrol to try and reestablish a level playing field.
And we say it all the time, if you are going into a matchup where your big advantage is just more experience, which I think it's very fair to say is Astral's advantage, then limiting them in the early game is so important as they are able to get right back into the action. Looks like everyone's okay here with the players. Is limiting that early game. A lot of the times these teams with less experience can look really good early and they fall apart late. Don't give them that chance to look good even early. Incontrol now already with their backs against the wall a bit.
But the bright side is they might be down 1,100 gold currently, but that doesn't mean that they're incapable of recovering that lead. Right now, everything is kind of riding on the fact that Astral have the invade presence. As soon as they lose that, those are the moments where we can start to see the punishment come through from Incontrol, and that's what we really need to keep an eye out for. The rotations to match up against some of those invades, and Incontrol choosing to actually take the moment in control.
And that was what becomes tough, is actually a nice stun lands. That's going to pull Wolves back underneath the tier 1, but he's able to shrug it off. In fact, might be a bit of a bait, as he's got Chapo here, but a good jump coming out from Jalen Sins. And that is more than enough to get him away from danger. But now the blue buff spawning and Chapo right there.
And that's the only reason why Chapo's here to begin with. He doesn't show presence in that lane because he expects Wolves to actually find a solo kill or even his assistants to make a difference. Shaolin was safe there no matter what. The same cannot be said for that blue buff. And if these invades continue to happen, then it could start to be a little bit of a devastating difference between the two teams.
And this is the part that's tough, because it's going to be very difficult for Joltak on this Khepri to try and match Chapo's ability to rotate around the map, right? Chapo can essentially play, he's free to move around the map. He's going to move around the map just faster anyway because he's not a Khepri, and have a bigger impact when he gets there. And since he's the one coming over here to invade the blue buff, Raigaku's likely elsewhere. There might be some trouble now for Chapo, though, as he finds the two-man taunt.
Fear no evil, gonna keep Chapo pinned down into the wall.
They jumped away?
Agni just wasn't close enough. If Kobe had been aware from the start that that was the intention from Raigaku and Joltak, I think that we see Kobe looking to rotate sooner to get those bomb damage spread, but because he wasn't ever really notified until it was too late, Chapo gets to not only absorb a free Fear No Evil, which is a huge team fighting aspect for Incontrol, but it only cost him his own ultimate.
A nice trade if you're Chapo for sure to be able to make it out of that one, because he certainly looked as if there was not going to be a way out for him, but he's able to make it out. Going in aggressively as Griffin slays, trying to take down Outbound, but I think he recognizes that that might not have been the actual play. He does force Outbound up into the air with Valkyrie's discretion and responds with his own airstrike.
Griffin went for the damage check, but it usually works a little bit better when the persistent gust actually connects. In that kind of circumstance, falling back is the only option Griffin really had. And Outbound just going to have to wait a little bit longer, I think, before he can try to find that solo kill.
Yeah, I think Outbound did everything, I guess, in that situation the right way. It was Griffin went kind of aggressive, had a big wave there to worry about too, but he made it out A-okay, no big problem. So it's just ended up being ultimate for ultimate, and he'll still very likely have the control here in this lane on the Jingwei. But you saw why this matchup is so popular. The Jingwei into the Freya, able to even be aggressive out of the banish instead of being that sitting duck.
It's a reactive Hunter pick, though, I think, from Astral's side of things. Griffin, if he had his way, would probably look to play something a little bit more aggressive than Jingwei early on, but so far doesn't seem to be slowing him down all that much. Good vision on the left-hand side is going to ensure that Griffin will not get ganked by Raigaku today.
Yeah, he does do a good job of getting back. Fear No Evil, the tail end, is able to find Chapo, but good control from the Taiko drums. Chapo goes back in, but he knew he had the heal coming, so he makes it back out A-okay, even though Astral can't find any more kills.
For as aggressive as Astral started out in this match, though, you would have almost expected them to have a much bigger lead by now, and yet Incontrol are still managing to keep within that 1 to 2,000 level disparity between the teams. And at a golden difference like that, it's not going to amount to all that much of anything because it's so early on in the match. Even a simple one team fight is really all it would take for Incontrol to one more time be in control of this game.
Yeah, the two big problem areas for me, Taco, are the solo lane and duo lane, where Shaolin Sins is repeatedly getting his blue buff stolen away, and where Griffin Slays seems to pretty clearly have the lane pressure over in duo. If those two can get resolved, or they don't give up much more there, and they're able to keep the lead from Astral contained there, they should be okay. But if it starts to affect jungle and mid as well, and spread throughout the map, that's when Incontrol's in trouble.
Well, you can already see Wolves has gotten a decent little chip out of Shaolin's tower there in the solo lane. So once that T1 actually goes down, that's when Incontrol has to really start to worry, because then the Wolves rotations will start to come through. And if Wolves is allowed to have any sort of impact or influence over these early game team fights, I'm not really certain how Incontrol managed to recover that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised he's looking to be this aggressive either. He went right to the Berserkers to start. We don't get to see this item as much anymore because we really don't even see Warriors over here in the solo lane that much anymore. There's so many Guardians that play well. We even see mages sometimes like the Barons and Chang'as. But now with Wolves over here piloting it with this very auto-attack focused god, he's able to get a ton out of that item.
Interesting to note, though, that Outbound, rather than finishing off that original ring tree he had started off with, he started building into the book side of things. And so I'm almost wondering if this is going to end up being a Book of Thoth, for example. I know we've been seeing a little bit of Freya play leaning towards that, where they'll rush the book and then they'll look for the Polynomicon shortly after to get a really nice power spike. But when you're the member that got first blooded and trying to keep up an experience against a Jingwei can be difficult as is. So for Outbound, the question is, if he is going for that book start, then will it be too little too late to have actually opted for this?
It is going to feel like it's going to slow him down a significant amount, right? Like having to try and wait on getting the Book of Thoth not just completed, but then stacked in a matchup, as you said, where he's already pretty significantly behind, and Griffin has his Devourer's Gauntlets finished and are already stacking. It could be tough for him to try and make up the difference, but it's such a big item for Freya. I get why he wants it, as Outbound actually jukes a few autos and makes his way out of there.
Really well played by Outbound to just disengage entirely. They knew that the follow-up rotation from Chapo and Layers was about to come through. But instead of taking down Outbound, it seems as though Astral have another objective in mind. It's the Gold Fury.
Yeah, this is absolutely the call if you're Astral Authority to try and get this started. But it looks like they don't want to stick onto it. Not once Incontrol show a little bit of presence nearby. Instead, they'll fall back and farm. And why not? So far, they've been able to farm essentially whatever it is that they want on the map. It's been like a carousel, and whoever gets off nearest to that enemy blue buff when it spawns gets to steal it away from Shaolin Sins that time.
It seems as though we're probably not going to see any future engagements until around that mid-game period, and we are starting to approach the ending phase of laning. And what I am hoping to see from Incontrol is just them trying to utilize some of this space denial that they have, because you've got the Fear No Evil, you've got Kobe with the Agni Bombs, even Stingent Torment from Shaolin can be excellent setup. And I really like the overall spread of damage that Incontrol have going for them, although it can be problematic when you consider the amount of burst that Astral Authority can match it with.
That's right. Astral shouldn't have too hard of a time eliminating a single target very quickly, though I think you're right. In terms of like a team fight composition, Incontrol's is very scary. With the Agni paired up with the Unbots, it's so much area that they control. You throw in Challenge Sins there, and then where do you use your beads? Am I using it on the Fear No Evil? Am I using it on Stitching and Torment? Or if a stray Banish lands too? It's so many questions you have to answer as a very aggressive Chapo goes in the back line, absorbs the Fear No Evil and turns things around, force out the Scarab's Blessing, but the Execute goes right through layers, finds another kill, and he wants more.
He wants Kobe, but he's not going to be able to find him. Instead, he gets right back glued. Death by association, and there's nowhere left for the monkey to run. So he'll be headed back to base with Joltak. And I don't think that could have gone any worse for Incontrol.
No, not at all. Big damage coming out from layers on the Ao Kuang, and they'll come right back to the Gold Fear in the back end. This door has been kicked wide open by that play that Chapo was able to set up. He baits out so many abilities inside that narrow jungle corridor, and the rest of his team is right there to follow up. Layers with the Execute punishes Joltak.
It's just the timing is everything, and the Fear No Evil looks so promising because it's just Chapo surrounded by members from Incontrol, and yet he's the one that comes out practically unscathed, and it's just a full collapse in return from Astral Authority. You have to appreciate the way that they utilize that jungle corridor to separate two different sides of Incontrol.
And this is absolutely the way that Chapo likes to play. He plays very cavalier with his own life. He uses it like as a resource to debate out abilities and positions from his enemy team and trust that his team will be able to follow up on the back end. And it very often works for him, especially with a team this stacked with talent. Chapo's able to play that way all the time.
You think it's the sleeveless Astral Authority?
Yeah, that's what it is.
I think that gives like Chapo a +10 power passive.
I think it might make him a little bit extra cold up there, so he wants to finish the game really quickly maybe, and that's why he's willing to dive a little bit further as Pyromancer now goes in favor of Astral as well. Now they've got the Gold Fury and the Pyro on the map.
And it can be a little bit overwhelming for Incontrol because, oh, hold that thought though. Griffin with his first solo kill of the game finds it onto Outbound with the airstrike. Aegis, just because why not when you're in the middle of a taunting cycle?
Right, that part probably not intentional there from Griffin, but luckily that's just between us, him, and the audience, right? As long as Incontrol don't recognize it, he should be okay. They won't be able to capitalize on it, hopefully.
Still, Outbound never even had an opportunity to use his Aegis, even after landing on the ground. I just don't think he was expecting the immediate airstrike follow-up, so the reactive timers, I think, just have to be a little bit better there from Outbound. I understand in the knockup you don't want to use your purification beads because you're already up in the air, there's nowhere left for you to go, but upon landing, you've got to anticipate that airstrike.
And make sure you have that Aegis ready, and Astral are ready for more aggression. Joltak yet again is the target, and the revive is not going to save you from the Execute. Layers finds that Baronic, finds one as well, though a great response from Kobe to make it at least 1 for 2. But Astral Authority have gotten essentially everything they've wanted so far. They might even try and force down this tier 1.
Kobe putting his team on the board, though, that's a start. It is a start for Incontrol. They might end up losing this T1 tower, but instead, Astral Authority thinking better of it. Safe, not sorry. That is the mentality that this team should be rolling with, because I really like what Visions actually addressed during that pregame interview, where they're not looking to underestimate this team by any circumstances.
And they haven't so far. They've played very methodically. They've seen where their windows are, and they've absolutely capitalized. It started with those blue buff invades. Chapo's been able to bait his life very well and force an overreaction from Incontrol, and the rest of the team can capitalize. I think that Astral's played very cleanly so far, and their reward for that is about a 3K gold lead, maybe even more.
The real difference maker so far has been Layers, just because of that Execute on the AO. It has been so problematic because Joltak has had a lot of really nice Scarab Blessing timings, but it just doesn't matter when you have that Execute, and that's exactly what Astral Authority were aiming for from the get-go.
Trying to find a way to punish through. Sometimes we see it's the Achilles, right, that the Execute picked up in response to the revive, but this time we're seeing it coming out as the Ao Kuang for Layers, so he's been able to make it work for him here so far in this game. Every time that revive has come down, the Scarab's Blessing on top of Joltak, Layers said, okay, it's my turn, I'll step in, get the Execute, go up into the Dragon form, and drop back down. Only mistake, though, is we're not seeing the Admiral Ao Kuang. I want to see the SS Quanger come out.
You just had to drop the SS Quanger, didn't you?
Anytime I see an Ao Kuang, that is his official name. Aggro has approved it, so that means that it definitely is the official name.
Oh, it's got to be good if Aggro gives it the heads up, right?
Yep. We're going with it now, and he has signed off on it. Nothing you can say about it.
Outbound could be in a little bit of trouble. Banish off the mark, and these autos are really starting to pack a punch here.
Yeah.
Not sure that was even a crit on the last hit. I think that's just the level disparity between the two. And Griffin understanding what kind of an advantage he has right now over Outbound. Gonna try and get some more hits onto this T1 tower, but look at the collapse coming through from Chapo. He's aiming straight for Outbound.
He's got the good recognition, a perfect two-man taunt, but the res does go through this time. Tycho drums in response, actually leaves Baronic in a bad spot. Covey finds the first kill of this engagement, and Astral might have finally overstepped. A great response from In Control.
Bit off a little bit more than they could chew there in that last engagement. Going into the T2 might have been a little bit preemptive here, but they'll find something for it anyhow. Joltag gonna go up into the air. Ayo with the execute. Outbound soon to follow. And just nowhere left for this dual lane to run. This T1 tower is nobody's safe haven for In Control.
No, the Astral Authority make up for that small mistake they made. I think this was the first time the Scarab's Blessing was actually able to finally res a target, and that's what made the big difference in that last fight. So the second time, they're like, all right, no one getting res this time. We're making sure we kill y'all properly.
Well, right now, Wolves, unfortunately, a little bit late to the party here. Might have missed the memo that the rotation was needed a little bit earlier on, but he still accomplishes his goal anyway. Might have been causing a diversion at that red buff on purpose, because while Kobe was spamming his bombs onto the Bellona, the T2 tower is being sieged by Astral.
That's extra gold right into their pockets, about 1,500 spread across the team, and that's going to mean about a 7,000 gold lead, about 8,000 experience. A pretty substantial lead for not even 20 minutes into the game. This one's starting to slip further and further away from In Control. They got to find a way to throw on the brakes.
But this is also where Astral Authority have to be careful not to overstep those boundaries, like that play we just saw over in the T2 tower, because one kill in exchange for two ends up working out in Astral Authority's favor because they were able to siege that T2 tower shortly after. But imagine that taking place at, say, 30 minutes, for example. Right. And then In Control have a little bit more experience to their players, a little bit more itemization under their belts. That's where the real punishment could come into effect.
Bit of a fight here around the purple buff. A good banish from Outbound will mean that In Control are able to make it for the disengage. You get back to not even tier 2, that's right, it's already been taken, and just able to get far enough away. Now Gold Fury will be the target. It's already below half health, but they drop it. They want to try and make the collapse on the back end. Staging Torment comes out from Shaolin Sins, and Raigaku finds the first kill on the Baronic.
Right now, though, it's all about Chapo trying to escape, but he's surrounded in the middle of the heart of everybody from In Control. Outbound finds his first kill of the game, but it's all the layers show so far. Rez is good, but the execute is even better. That's a double kill for Wolves, or Layers, excuse me, and Wolves just finishing him off with the hat trick.
They're going to make Kobe the next target. He's going to have a hard time finding his way out of here. Goes back in to try and find the return kill, but a double now for Wolves. Griffin comes back in and makes it the full-on deicide. And Astral Authority, with their Hunter still healthy, could go for the Gold Fury, or they can make a nice little journey right over to the Fire Giant.
Layers might be low, but he won't be for much longer. He got enough lifesteal on this AO to be able to not only push up the mid wave, but right now, Astral Authority, they understand how much time they actually have, and because Griffin has the Poison Star and the Executioner, they can afford to take a little bit longer before making their way over to this Fire Giant. It's going to be shredded by the time Raigaku and Joltak even make it past the T2 tower.
Yeah, they have more than enough damage, and everyone else from the team is up in time for the Fire Giant to go to all 5 members, Taco. A big swing in Astral's favor. Things already were pretty heavily Astral skewed, but winning the fight near the Gold Fury and grabbing the Fire Giant on the back end has started to put this game even further out of reach for In Control. 12,000 experience, nearly 10,000 gold. It's been dominant from the Xbox top team.
I just don't think In Control are resetting fast enough. They find an initial pick onto Baronic, and that is solid. Then they find a follow-up kill onto Chapo, which, of course, is still obviously favorable for the team, but they expended all of their cooldowns just for those 2 picks alone. Meanwhile, Astral Authority are still looking for the flanks. Layers, especially alongside of Wolves, they approach from 2 different directions, and so it just felt like In Control weren't sure which way to actually look.
They weren't able to find anyone else that they could punish, and Astral Authority did a good job exploiting that weakness, taking the deicide and grabbing more in the back end. Now Griffin will not be able to get the Gold Fury, which he was thinking about. A good job from Raigaku showing some presence here to force them back, but now with Baronic joining the fray, they should be able to grab a tier 1 tower. In right will also fall, and it's starting to be too many threads pulled for In Control to try and respond to. Astral are really spreading them out.
With both towers and now the Gold Fury already removed from the left-hand side of the map, even though it would be ideal to take that left side Phoenix, I'm pretty certain Astral are going to want to bring down all these towers first and foremost. T1 not going to stand a chance against this Fire Giant squad. But the T2 could be a different story entirely. Incontrol might be looking to see what kind of poke they can get. Basically a little damage check of their own.
They're showing some small presence here, and I like it. Just not letting them grab all these tier 2 towers for free. I don't know if they want to full commit to a fight here this far down, but at the very least, you can't let Astral just walk in and take them all that easily. At least make them waste some time on the FG, commit something to earn this tier 2 tower.
Well, Astro will have to wait for the next creep wave before they really feel comfortable pushing in here. Shaolin hugging inside that speed buff, but doesn't seem like he's all that interested in jumping in just yet. And Astral Authority will bring down the mid T2, now setting their eyes towards this right-hand side, and no one from Incontrol even bothering to follow. So this little ambush that Astral were planning out might just go left unseen.
Looks like they might be trying to collapse on the Shaolin Sins here in the mid lane. The jump already down. He does have Stygian Torment available, trying to get himself out as Chapo wants to keep up the chase. But they forced out the sprint. At this point, Incontrol should have disengaged well enough that Astral have to go looking somewhere else.
Astral still have about another minute and a half though left on this Fire Giant, so it's not a complete waste to look for that pick. They understand that Shaolin is probably the only frontlining member for initiation that Incontrol have at their disposal. And so without this Cerberus, it's going to be too much pressure, I think, for Joltak, because he's more focused on peeling for his carries. That's the sole purpose of a Khepri in this situation, I think, and going for this double Guardian setup, because you want Shaolin to be the one that's able to start up a fight, and then Joltak just helps ensure that your team comes out on top of it.
And for what it's worth, he's not too far behind. He has level 19 for the Cerberus in the solo lane, and has 5 items finished off, just needs to get rid of that Guardian's Blessing and put one more in the slot. He went with that Wing Blade, which is some nice cheap health to try and help him out a little bit. So he can still do some frontlining for the team, but it's just so tough into all this damage from Baronic and Griffin, even Layers at this point, especially Layers, is going to make life hard.
And what's even worse is that Wolves, understanding that with this double warrior frontline, it's going to be rather difficult for the Sieges to come through unless they have a heavy snowballed lead. And sure, there is definitely a pretty significant lead in terms of experience and goal between these two teams, probably around 15,000 on both of those ends, but I like the Emperor's armor specifically for the fact that they have the double warrior frontline, because otherwise I don't think we see Astral Authority having a very fun time looking to bring down these Phoenixes.
Looks like they are going to slow down the actual sieging stage, though, for a little while. Not going to push into the Gold Furies just yet. They've gotten all the towers off the map, all the gold you could ask for out in front, about 16,000. And at this point, it's all still very, very much relevant, as no one in Incontrol is even approaching being 6-slotted. So Astral are enjoying all of that lead. They still have time. They can move back over to this Fire Giant, grab that, and then push back in. But if you're in control, I mean, what do you need to try and make this defense happen? It feels like a perfect Fear No Evil, a perfect Stygian Torment.
Not necessarily. I think a good Fear No Evil for sure can help make a pretty significant difference, but they do have the double Guardian frontline, and that will always be a pretty difficult factor to tackle, because even with all the burst damage that Astral Authority have, if they don't find a kill from their initial run, they don't have a whole lot that they continue to re-engage with. They're just relying on their lead and their damage to end the fight early.
Right, I think that the big deal would be if they could get a successful revive off in the fight, if they can somehow avoid whoever the res target is, get them away from Layers on this Alquang that execute. That was what was really such a detriment for them early game. It essentially meant one of their big team fighting ultimates was non-existent because Layers able to chew right through it.
But that's just credit to Layers, because every single time Joltak looked to res somebody, it was an immediate target focus onto that individual. It didn't matter what part of the team that they are playing. Incontrol have just not been allowed to use this Khepri's ultimate in the slightest, and it's practically made Joltak irrelevant. So these Phoenix defenses are the only real shot that Joltak's gonna have for getting these revives off.
And this might be a little bit more difficult for them. We'll see what the engage plan is. They do have a blink for Layers if they want to send him in. So far, it's been a lot of Chapo just kind of turtling in and just being bigger than everybody else that's around at the point. So we'll see if that might be what they want to look at. They've got a couple of options of how they want to engage.
Still a little bit of hesitation, though, from Astral, because they've got this split push factor going in right now. Layers might be looking for the 1v1 up against Ryaklu, but with the wave having already been cleared from the overhand smash, he might just have to sit this one out a little bit longer.
Wolves absorbing quite a bit of damage, half HP, but Fear No Evil comes in to try and punish, finds no one. In fact, Chapo goes back in for a taunt of his own, but Stygian Torment means round 2, and they bring one more back into the tower, but Wolves still alive, makes his way out. Now it's the Taiko drums, time for the clap back from the right in the middle lane, but Astral can't find much there. In Control, hold on to their Phoenix.
But Wolves can back, upgrade his teleport, and then immediately come back into the fight, and that's the problem here for In Control. They're not going to be prepared for this.
Chapo gets locked down underneath the Phoenix. He might be in trouble, but it's Layers who is able to find the kill. Unstoppable as he gets the execute up into the air. Comes right back down, though, to rejoin his team. It's 5v4 again, and In Control still hold on to their Phoenix.
The Phoenix hasn't even been touched, though. And when you look at it, you would have expected that Astral would have at least gotten a couple of autos in there, but Griffin has just not been allowed to hit that Phoenix at all. So kudos to In Control for being willing to stand up in front of him.
Shaolin Sin's trying to be the front line. They'll send Raigaklu in instead, but he also has to jump back, and just like that, the Phoenix on the right-hand side comes down. Astral able to burn it quite quickly once Griffin is able to get a few autos off. No real way to defend that 4v5.
That's a 200 IQ call from me, by the way, with the Caster's Curse.
Right, yeah. As soon as you said, like, they were having trouble getting Griffin in, they immediately...
I'm telling you, 3-second delay.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
That's about it, yeah. Again, I still haven't really honed mine in just yet. You know, I think we're still working.
You got to learn how to use it a little bit better here, man. I mean, we're 28 minutes in, and already I've given Astral a Phoenix.
That was nice of you.
They can PayPal me later.
Yeah, they'll hit you up, I'm sure. Talk to him after the game as Astral now firmly in control, as if they weren't already. About a 19K gold lead. The right side Phoenix now down. We did see that there was a little bit of trouble for them trying to find their way in. It's mostly just Wolves and Chapo kind of walking at the other team and trying to set their fights up that way. If In Control can stabilize a little bit longer, like you said, these Guardians can really start to become a problem.
Honestly, though, I'm not even all that concerned about the right side Phoenix because of the fire minions. I think that that's actually more beneficial for In Control, that they have a consistent lane that they could possibly farm out of. The issue that I'm having is that with the right side Phoenix being exposed, it now gives a secondary routing opportunity that Layers can look to take to sneak into the backline from In Control when Chapo and Wolves are looking to play aggressive for whatever next Phoenix they choose to try and siege.
That could potentially be a problem for them, but you're right. That Fire Minion Wave is always going to win out and be up close near them so they can farm it relatively safely, but Astral not going to give them time to sit back and farm. They're already knocking on the door of the left side Phoenix. They've got the wave pushed up. Chapo and Layers are pushing up the mid wave. They got a nice split going on. And Moronic is still hustling, making his way to the action.
Layers headed towards that right-hand side. He wants to bring up that creep wave to ensure that the fire minions will be there. Even if it's a mild distraction, it's still one that's going to force at least a single member from In Control to pay mind to.
Yeah, someone's got to come over and defend this, or Layers just keep right on pushing. This Al Kwong has so much damage. He's got 2 over here on the right-hand side, right? Gaklu and Shaolin Sins considering helping out. Only 3 on the left side to defend because Shaolin Sins has to watch the mid lane too. They got a wave there. Astral done a good job spreading In Control thin.
Joltag trying to throw out a little bit of pressure here just to prevent any initiations, but it's Griffin who's getting blown up right away. Doesn't even get a chance. No, the airstrike barely making it out of there.
And that's almost all Covey. Big damage from those Agni Bombs over the wall on the right-hand side, and Griffin Slay's got to run for the hills. And without that Jing Wei, that's going to slow down this push a lot. Now, the Rapid Reincarnation can get them back quick, but I think they might want to go grab that Fire Giant instead, Taco, and try and be entirely topped off before they make their push.
I'm more impressed by the fact that Griffin actually had enough life RNG to live there, because anybody else, I think we all know, there's some kind of dot damage that applies to kill him when he's at 1 HP.
Yeah, no one else gets to fly on out of there. So that one, fortunately, coming up his way, as Astral will certainly be making their way towards the Fire Giant. And In Control have got to start thinking, I believe, about ways to not let the aggression get out of control so early in game 2, right? I mean, Wolves had so much pressure on the blue side. The dual lane got into control right away between Chapo and Griffin. They got to find some way to slow that down.
It's not going to be easy, though. Even for Astral Authority, the fact that they were having difficulty sieging on that left-hand side with the lead that they've built up, it just goes to show that In Control have no intentions of letting these Firebirds go for free. If Astral Authority want to breach the base again, they're going to have to work for it.
You heard it for them. In Control is a team with a lot of confidence. In that interview where you spoke to them They know how strong this Astral team is, but they believe they've got enough to make this work. Some new talent, a mix of some old talent as well. That's a pretty strong combination that could definitely get this done, but Astral not going to make it easy for this In-Control team. They've got higher aspirations as the pin doesn't quite land for the root, and they're going to try and muscle their way through the mid-Phoenix.
But that's just the thing, though. This isn't an Astral composition that I see them wanting to take this match past the 25-minute mark even. So for In-Control to have held on this long means that it's very likely Astral Authority could fumble on some of these Phoenix Sieges.
Mid-Phoenix, though, does go down. In-Control don't really have a chance to make any kind of defense there. And Astral Authority, clean as you like, going to move right over to the left side and pick up this wave as well, so they can start looking for their push. In-Control didn't even really get to make much of an attempt on that mid-Phoenix. They're definitely got to make something happen on this left side, or Astral is going to walk their way in.
Griffin and Chapo bringing up the waves, like any good teammates would. But more importantly, it's been about Wolves and his patience with these blinks on the Ao Kuang.
Yeah, I think it's been good between him and Layers, both on when they're deciding to make these initiations and find their way into the fight. So that's one more to keep an eye on. Where's Layers going to be in this fight? When's he going to pick his moment to jump in and try and blow someone up on In-Control? It might be in response to a Scarab's Blessing.
Jump away from Raigaklu in the mid lane.
Why?
Seems like he doesn't want anything to deal with this AO, and I don't blame him.
He does not.
Sheer 1v1, fear no evil, not going to have any effect against the Mad Guys, but the same can't be said for Chapo. He's taking way too much damage underneath that left side Phoenix.
CG and Torment pulled 2 in. Tycho jumps there in response, but didn't find much damage. But either way, In-Control have fallen back. Now it's Raigaklu coming back in. Fear no evil hits the whole team, overhand smash. Not enough to finish it up as Shaolin Sins jumps in as well, but he might be in a bit of trouble as he gets knocked up by Chapo. Good banish from Outbound, and it's Layers who reinitiates. Execute finds it on the Shaolin Sins. The Cerberus is out of there.
All 3 Phoenixes now stripped away here for In-Control, so the fire minions are soon to be pouring in any second now, and Astral Authority know it. They're just grouping up in the mid lane. They want to keep these waves pushed. They want to make sure that they have fire minions from all 3 sides, because In-Control, whether it's the creeps or Astral, they're not going to be able to hold on to this Titan for much longer here, Finch.
Wolves moves in first. He's the one with the aggro. Titan now well below half HP. It's getting burned entirely too quickly. Astral Authority grabbed the victory in game 1. In-Control, reeling after a strong performance off your Xbox #1 seed.
And Astral Authority, the whole way through, it just felt like they were the ones who were in control.
Yeah.
It was just so difficult, I think, for In-Control to try and look for that comeback opportunity because of how much unabashed pressure Wolves was able to provide alongside of Chapo. You saw either Chapo or Wolves at every single one of those buff invades.
They were there repeatedly on that blue side. That got such a big advantage for Wolves right off the bat. Griffin and Chapo did a good job controlling that dual lane as well and building up a lead from there. Some big adjustments going to need to be made by In-Control in game #2. Let's go ahead and get it back over to the analysts on the desk. Maybe they've got some ideas.
Thanks a lot there, John Finch. Great job of the call alongside Taco. And what a great job Astral did. Honestly, can I pat us on the back?
If you want.
We told you guys, listen, it's about Wolves, it's about Layers. And how do they win that game, Trans?
Listen, I think serve is not the call. If they want a chance, they need somebody to at least match Wolves. They can't let Wolves steal the blue buff and out-pressure them now.
Wolves got big, and then Wolves and Layers literally 2v5.
We watched it.
It was a 5-man Bologna ult with an Ao Kuang on your team.
But the goal is to get them neutral and solo so they could make plays in dual lane, but then dual lane got first blooded. So that was just, it wasn't looking too hot.
Rough stuff across the board, but let's take a look at the post-game stats presented by Access Replay. 8-0-6, 2-0-4. Together, the right side of the map for Astral go 10-0-9, a large part of what this team was able to do. And I mean, look at the damage. The numbers just speak for themselves.
Yeah, Baronic didn't have the best score line, but did plenty of damage. Layers was doing exactly what his job is, which is play cleanup crew on this Ao Kuang. He played it beautifully. Wolves was able to frontline. I will say, both teams need to work on their relic usage a little bit. Outbound was very, very late a lot of times. Baronic died with Aegis up a ton. Griffin ends up taking his whole health bar because he decides to hold beads on a Phoenix Siege. I mean, that has got to be cleaned up for game 2.
What I do like about Griffin is that he was dashing in every wave, and if he trades ults with Freya, that's actually a win for him because he has a dash, Freya doesn't. So that makes Freya easily gankable.
As soon as you get rid of Freya's ability to get out of the fight, then all of a sudden you're in a position to just take care of Freya and push her out of the fight. So I agree. I like that aggression. I also like what we saw out of Covey for the most part as well. I think he was able to get off his damage. It just wasn't able to prevent the onslaught from the right side.
I agree. I think Covey had a pretty solid game, all things considered. But when a fight like this goes against you, it's really hard to come back from.
I'm in a double kill for Wolves, and this was the 2v5 fight.
The 2v8, the 2v8ers, that's what they call themselves.
It felt like it at times. I mean, those two definitely didn't get a lot of help that fight in particular, and that was Incontrol's moment, where they feel like they're winning the fight, we're surging forward, we finally got him, we can actually take this win, and then you get Wolves. And every team has that to happen to you at some point. It just happened to them with layers right there on top of it.
Well, so here's the question, is that sure, I think it's very easy to win one game by just dunking over somebody. All right, we've got a fantastic player. Can they do it again in game number 2, Trans?
What I've seen last game, none of them were talking after when they were losing. Like I was looking at the player cams, they were not talking. They have to like clear their heads for this game and just have a fresh start.
Communication is key.
Because it's a best of 3 too, so this is their last chance.
This is backs against the wall.
Yeah.
They've got to do it. So Incontrol looking for the first pick here. Astral on the option.
Incontrol with the first on the first pick side means that maybe they can get that Erlong Shen for themselves. I think Chapo had a pretty solid game on that pick. Getting the first blood was obviously huge in that duo lane.
Like I told Aggro, I don't think Freya not in the ADC. I think she's more of a mid god.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of teams in the PC Pro League try to play her in that ADC position, and they've had some success. What's the biggest difference there?
It's almost always paired with Cerberus in that lane. It gives you so much pressure, the ability to fight early on. It covers up one of Freya's weaknesses, is that pre-5, she's very vulnerable, but when you're surging forward all the time, it's pretty easy to be the aggressors in that lane. I just think that after that performance that Outbound had, I don't need to see it again. It's time to move on already to a different pick.
Yeah, different pick. Yeah, I agree.
Well, looking at the bans, I'm not sure if that's the direction he wants to go in. Cerberus and Erlong Shen going to be banned out here. Astral taking care of the control mage. And right now they're trying to figure out if they want to give Freya across the way or Mercury, I think.
I don't have any problem giving Incontrol Freya after that last game. Yeah, give it to him. Let him pick it. Now they leave the option open. Do you want Mercury or Pele or Freya? If I'm in control here, I take Freya because it's unlikely that Astral will take both Pele and Mercury. Odin's not too bad either, though.
I mean, you called it the permaban.
The permaban, but I mean, they first picked it, so.
It's going to work out just as well as a ban.
But that's still super good for Astral, right? I mean, you just forced Incontrol to first pick Odin, which will never be as effective as it would have been for you, and now you've got the option. Do we want Mercury? Do we want Freya? Do we want Pele? I mean, you can take both.
Odin kind of counters all of them.
Odin is pretty good against those, but I think that Astral's in a position where if I'm in their shoes, I don't think I'm worried that much about that Odin on the other side.
Of course I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. If Layer says, give me Pele, I'm locking Pele. It's pretty simple.
Jingwei going to be the lock-in here for Astral. I do have one more. Already in the bank time. Going to be the Sun Wukong, an early pickup for SWK.
Wow. That can go jungle.
Yeah.
Could go jungle. I think Layers has played some stuff like that before. It is just a pick that gets out of Odin Cage. So is the Jingwei. I have no problem early picking the Jingwei, keep it out of Outbound's hands, give it back to Griffin in that dual lane. He played it pretty well.
Yeah, he played it good.
But I just feel like they might be giving this Odin pick a little bit too much respect.
I feel that. I definitely feel that.
Yeah, I think they were better off. They banned their own god. They were better off banning the Odin, if anything.
Astral's a team that I think is, you have to recognize your talent level. I think Astral is better than the Odin counter, if you will. They can just play characters for the most part. I think Layers can, like you said, just play a god that gets countered by Odin, and it does not matter. He's just better than the pick itself. That's a real thing. So option over to Incontrol. What would you like to see paired up with this Odin?
I mean, Kobe has a dirty Zeus, so I wouldn't mind seeing the Zeus and the Khepri.
That's true.
They could run it back to Zeus Khepri right here. I would like to.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I actually would have liked that a lot as well. I think that giving Outbound something safe in the mid lane, though, I think this Chiron could be going in the mid lane for Kobe. That wouldn't be a bad look for him. I think he has played it a little bit. He did play a little bit ADC this year. Didn't go particularly well. That's why he's here for Incontrol. I agree with Trans. I think Zeus or something like Upwash, something similar, same sort of vein, big AoE control.
Yeah, something that can pair up with the Odin. very happy to see Chiron go into that long lane as well. Covey is a traditional mage player. I like to see him on those traditional mages. He can do the hunter. I think it's similar to Pretty Prime conversation we had on PC. Yeah, you can play the hunters, sure, but I'm just always happier with Covey, Nopwash, or Zeus. That said, KP layers, he's got Thor. This could be devastating.
I like it. I like it.
This was the pick for him, man. For a long time, this was his pick.
Really, really was. Here making a statement. Astral returning to it. Second round of bans here on the clock. Astral trying to figure out what they want to take away from In Control. PlayStation team here, down one game. It is a best of 3. All Astral has to do is win this one, and they move on. In Control has to win now, and then again, Geb, the ban here from Astral, and right away, In Control ban out Baronix Raijin.
That's a good idea. That's what I was thinking for Astral Authority, something that gets out of Odin Cage and something that Baronix is very comfortable with. Baronix, I think, might look to Giannis next, and so if I'm In Control, that might be where I'd be looking to ban.
Certainly a lot of movement, able to get through everything. Nice look there. Low time on the clock. Astral has really spoken a lot about this pick ban phase, and I really respect that. I think it's easy to come in as the winning team and kind of think very simply about what's going on here. But Astral's still digging deep and bopping hard. I like that.
Does Discordia 3 get out of Odin Cage?
It does,
Yes,
yeah. It gets you up and out of it.
I actually like to see Discordia though.
Yeah, it might not be a bad call. Khepri ban, actually, from In Control. I thought they might be going for something like that, Khepri. Joltak didn't have the best performance on it, but it is something that can protect that Opwash pretty easily and still take that frontline damage for you. With the Geb ban as well, that means that the premier peel and save Guardians really aren't on the table anymore for In Control.
I'm looking at Athena. You've got the Chiron on the In Control side of the board. Athena's my go-to. Athena into Opwash is not your typical raw beam, as so to speak, follow-up, but it's certainly there.
I agree. I think that, honestly, I'd like it for Astral here. It gets you out of Odin Cage if you use that Defender of Olympus. Double Global can be very, very hard to counter with that Thor as well. Chapo has played a lot of Athena. I mean, we messed around with it in Jungle back in the day. He's definitely got a good one, so I think that'd be a good idea for Astral.
Athena's the pick, period. Whatever team picks Athena is doing it right here. But again, Astral digging into their bank time. The selection will be Bacchus. Astral looking more and more aggressive.
I mean, Bacchus has an anti-heal in his burp, so, I mean, he could stop Opwash's heal, Chiron's heal.
That is true, but Bacchus is the type of pick. I mean, so much of our talk pregame was how much practice has Chapo had.
In the support role, yeah.
In the support role, exactly. You really think Bacchus has been the character he's been working on? I mean, maybe. He likes doing damage, but I still feel like Bacchus is a fringe meta god that's only good in the right situations.
I think they were overthinking the Odin. They just want to be out the cage.
I agree. I think that Athena gets you up and out of that cage fairly easily and is very, very good with the Thor already, sets up for what could be a good Discordia pick later on. I agree. I think that Astral got in their own heads.
I think there is a mentality where Chiron just negates what Athena does. A strong Chiron makes sure that you just can't get taunted. So I think there is a thought process there. And as we said, Chapo, an aggressive player in his own right, Bacchus is that type of dude. But again, this is fringe meta. I don't even care if it's meta. You know, I'm asking for Poseidon jungle every game. He's just hard to play.
He is.
And that's the concern for me, is that this is a hard god.
Well, you want to talk about cleansing abilities like Athena taunt. How about cleansing Intoxicate very, very easily? How about cleansing Belch pretty easily? You can cleanse Belly Flop fairly easily. I mean, these are all abilities that can get cleansed. Chiron is just good against Guardians.
Oh, I like the Discordia pick.
You were calling that
good.
before. You were calling that before, Chris. What do you say about Discordia? Why do you want to see it?
Well, I feel like Wolves is always going to be brawling, so he's always going to have that passive. So that benefits him too, and she gets out the cage.
It's absolutely true. Bacchus is going to be bringing a ton of damage. Kuzenbo, one of Agro's favorite characters, across the way for In Control.
What? No, it's not.
Agro doesn't like Kuzenbo, but the reason you don't like Kuzenbo, he's so difficult to fight into.
I hate that guy.
Yeah, any damage dealer hates that guy because he stops damage dealers really, really well.
Astral have 5 damage dealers on their team.
More or less, yeah. And I think this matchup again is going to be Shaolin Sins up against Wolves, and can he control him in that solo lane? Is it going to be Kuzenbo solo or Odin solo is the question. And Wolves has played more Odin than all of In Control combined. So I think that Wolves is going to know that matchup inside and out. That would make me lean towards a Kuzenbo in solo, but do you really want to give Shaolin another low pressure Guardian like the Kuzma.
I don't think that was the call.
I agree.
It's kind of tough. It's absolutely kind of tough. Incontrol versus Astral. Real quick, one word.
Astral.
Astral.
Looks like we're all Astral here. Casters, take us away.
And no big surprise that the desk is confident after that big performance from Astral in Game 1. They looked dominant as we expected, but can they close it out here again? It does seem very likely. A strong draft, though I would say a confident one from Astral, right? Maybe not the same picks that we always see, but definitely some comfort picks for them.
Certainly nowhere near as much pressure as what they opted for in game number 1, which might be a sigh of relief if you're an In-Control fan, because things were looking pretty rough at the beginning of last match. I think that Astral are still probably intending on trying to use Chapo as a heavy rotational factor early on to see what they can get away with, but it's certainly going to be significantly easier for In-Control to find the necessary responses.
Might be a bit easier path for them. They've got some strong picks themselves. Covey on the Opwash, who's been a very strong pick as of late. Odin, who's always been a high priority pick on the box in particular, and they have great synergy with him and the Opwash together. You cage him in, he drops down the crypts, and nowhere for you to go. So I think In-Control have a very strong draft this time. They just have to make sure they're able to execute it, and they don't let themselves fall behind like they did last time. They had some troubles the last time they were in this situation early on.
And another thing you have to also factor in, though, is that even with the Odin, or excuse me, even with the lockdown from the Alpwash and Shaolin with the Kuzumbo, it's not necessarily guaranteed setup. It's a lot of space denial, sure, but AoE might not be as effective when you think about all the mobility that Astral Authority have.
Very similar to the last game. Outbound takes some early poke off a knock-up. Griffin on the Jingwei, able to put in a little bit of work, but Outbound makes it out. So he should be A-okay. This is one of those areas, though, they've got to make sure they're controlling a little bit better. This duo lane fell behind so early last time. They can't afford to have the same thing here.
And this is a nasty combination so far from Griffin and Chapo. Belly flop into the persistent gust. It's guaranteed knockup, and it's a double knockup, too, if you are able to match that timing in sync. And so far, Griffin has been a little bit too early with some of these persistent gusts, that there hasn't been the double knockup effect, but it's still just as strong as ever. And it's certainly something that Outbound is already probably pretty annoyed with.
I'm sure at this point he's already tired of it and no longer wants to deal with it, but unfortunately, it's not going to stop anytime soon. Astral should be able to take this purple buff without too much trouble. They've got all the lane dominance, and really, In-Control just kind of have to stick around and make sure they clear those minions, so an easy purple buff steal for Chapo and Griffin.
Astral Authority's dual lane already sitting at level 2 here, but Flop is off the mark and Outbound. That might have just been first blood had Chapo actually managed to connect, but Outbound probably counting his lucky stars that it didn't.
Fortunately, able to just barely make it out of there, but Astral are not done getting aggressive. Layers now trying to steal away these back harpies, and this is not too far from what we saw in Game 1, where Astral was kind of just able to walk in repeatedly to In-Control's jungle and steal their farm early on in the game. A lot of the times it was Wolves and Layers last game, but we're seeing the duo lane get in on this too for Astral.
Still, this is the kind of pressure that you want from this dual lane, and it's not exactly expected or guaranteed pressure either, because Jingwei and Bacchus don't have the easiest time out clearing too many opposing dual lanes, but it's mostly because of the Chiron, I believe, that has made this situation a lot easier to manage.
And Chapo's done a good job. They haven't even focused that much on clear. It's been on trying to out-pressure in lane, like looking for damage, just like this. And then even though Outbound has the better clear, he can't stick around for it as he takes a big chunk of damage coming between Chapo and Griffin working together and immediately has to fall back.
Once Chapo gets the chug online also and begins getting towards that intoxication factor, the tankiness from Bacchus, he probably won't even notice these bird bombs that Joltak keeps trying to poke him out with.
Is able to get away from the Odin one more time as blue buff invade is happening yet again. They're continuing from last game and the bounce out of there, it would seem, as Thor was able to disengage. So clean one more time from Astral Authority on the solo side. They're controlling both sides of the map.
Layer's probably not too happy about it, having to use his own purification beads though to get away with it. But better than ending up being the first blood in exchange. So invade, not necessarily completely in favor or going the way the Astral Authority would have envisioned it, because ideally they don't want to be pressured at all.
Is this Soul Eater first item right away coming out from Wolves?
Yes.
That's what it appears to be. He'll have a ton of extra ability life still helping him out there in lane once he gets that finished stack. This feels like aggression.
This feels like Deathwalker's pioneered Soul Eater, Sun
Yes.
Wukong, spreading its way over onto the console side of things. And I can't even blame Wolves for in this sort of matchup. You want that sort of sustain because it's going to be pretty impactful at preventing Shaolin from being as aggressive as he would want to be on this Kuzumbo.
And it's a bit of a greedy build, but it allows this Sun Wukong to get to the point where he's still dealing decent damage, but also almost unkillable very early on, as Layers has made his impact known left-hand side, but Outbound still had beads, able to get away from the Thor dunk, and we remain killless across the 4-minute threshold.
Perfect beads there from Outbound as well. Not only did he time it to avoid the stun from the follow-up wall out of Layers, but the persistent gust knockup not able to connect either. Instead, Astral just gonna have to settle for clearing out their own purple buff. But knowing that Outbound doesn't have those beads is sure to mean a return visit from Layers any second.
They may not even need Layers to come back over as long as Champo and Griffin can find a knockup combination between the belly flop and the knockup coming out from Griffin as well. So it looks like they once again strip away the purple buff. They've got both and limit the farm of Incontrol even further. It's just a slow stranglehold that they have on this map.
Look at how much of a bully Wolves is being right now. This is what he does every single time he comes out to play.
All the
he
time.
just forces the jungler and the solo laner of the opposing team to back away from wherever he is on the map in this early game.
Now, at some point, Taco, I mean, you can't let them take all this farm from you. Just hold that thought. Layers might have an opportunity because they've got also Chapo coming in on the Bacchus, looking for the stun underneath the tower. Intoxicate finds it. First blood coming out for Astral, but Raigaklu here with a big answer back. He catches them under the tower with the Fear No Evil, but only gets one to make it 1-for-1.
Wolves going for the slowdown just because he understands without much mana, Raigaklu won't have any sort of follow-up other than the Fear No Evil. T1 Tower MVP for right now, because without it, I don't think we see Chapo dying there.
No, not at all. The Fear No Evil from Raigaklu was well placed and well timed. He was almost able to find more than just the one kill, but still, first blood coming out from Astral on that gank, going the way of Chapo with the Intoxicate. And he's even got the pin boots to get things started. So he's got a little bit of extra swing coming out now when he drops down that gourd. Or jug, whatever it is.
I don't think it really matters at this point. He's just trying to drink it. That's
Yeah.
all he's looking for.
But he isn't. When you drop it down, he's splashing everywhere. It's such a waste. Why would Bacchus ever want to do that?
Or maybe he's watering the ground with wine.
With wine? You don't waste wine like that.
Depends on the wine.
Maybe Bacchus is okay with it. He's got plenty, apparently. He's able to drink from it all day long, and Champo has plenty of pressure over here in the dual lane. You're going to see Outbound laughing a bit. He knows he cannot afford to step up in this lane, has to wait until they push that wave a little bit further for him to farm.
It's interesting to see that from members of Incontrol, though. Even in the last game, I think Kobe is sticking out for me because he was still keeping that laugh spam, that taunt spam going. And it just tells me that Incontrol are still confident in themselves. They still feel like this is a set that they can turn around and that Astral Authority cannot afford to take them lightly.
And I think that they're right to sort of keep their mental state at that spot. They were the underdogs coming in, you know, and the pressure, I feel like, is on Astral almost entirely here. So even if you're having some trouble, if you're in control, you can sort of come in and going, well, who picked us to win this matchup up against a team as strong as this? We still have a chance to pull it out as long as we're here in this game. You can kind of keep yourselves, I feel like, a little bit more relaxed, even when things look bad.
Griffin trying to get those persistent gust poke spams onto Outbound. But with Chiron being so low on mana, I'm actually a little bit surprised he's still willing to play so far up in this dual lane.
I am also a bit surprised, but fortunately there's no one nearby to punish him for it, so he's going to try and grab what farm he can while he can, even if it's a bit risky, as Astral just grabbing their own red buff. They do remember they have their own jungle they can farm as well. It looks like Outbound will actually be here in time to defend the purple this time.
You actually have a tendency to forget about it at times because Astral has spent so much time in Incontrol's jungle.
Yes.
And yet Incontrol unable to find any sort of counters to this strategy from Astral Authority. And right now, re-establishing control of the purple buff, it's a start, but it's not necessarily going to be the winning factor here for Incontrol. You're going to need a little bit more than just confirming your own purple buff.
There's going to be multiple steps that they're going to have to make as Veronic actually going into the Divine Ruin right away. It can be a strong item as hold that thought. There's aggression in mid. Just the flop and Unruly Magic is almost enough. Covey reeling just from that damage But the Divine Run this early, usually when there's really big healing you're worried about, you could see this. What's Veronic worried about here?
He's just trying to inconvenience Incontrol as much as possible. The little bits of self-sustain that Incontrol do have in their favor are going to be negated pretty much entirely by this Divine Ruin. And not only that, but even if Incontrol were to try and prioritize more sustain to build onto the ones already involved in their kits, Divine Ruin, again, is just going to be so problematic that there's practically no reason for Incontrol to opt for that route.
It's definitely one that feels good once you already have it, and you can tell you're limiting your opponent's ability to sort of sustain through your damage. He's got the pin boots right there to follow it up, so likely won't be lacking for any damage. We saw him put the hurt on the Kobe. This could be some trouble though, but up in the air is Layers, comes right back down with a two-man stun. Beads gets him away from the Fear No Evil, and that Thor passive certainly swinging. They've even got more help coming in the form of Chapo, but the first one comes out in Shaolin Sin's favor, though they do get the answer back from Chapo.
Joltag gonna barely manage to escape from the aftermath of that explosive downpour out of Layers, and the Thor ult could not have been better placed, but a little bit too long of a stick around there from Layers. Definitely would have preferred to see him look to disengage after realizing there's 3 members. We are simply outnumbered on this one.
There's going to be more action as the Empty the Crypts ends up being dropped by Kobe to try and force everybody back. That was a good response from Incontrol. They got to send a bunch of numbers over there to try and answer this aggression, but this could be trouble now for Outbound. He does have some help coming over in the form of this Odin, but it's just not going to be enough unless he can find the reset to try and keep himself alive, but it's just not enough. A nice play from Griffin to get the kill.
But the overhand smash from Raiglaku is going to clean him up shortly afterwards. Griffin nowhere left to run. A really nice counter rotation from Incontrol to ensure that their Hunter, despite having been soloed, will not be able to fall any further behind because Griffin's not able to farm either while he's dead.
That's about the only help that could be given there to Outbound in the tough spot he found himself in when Griffin was able to, in rhythm, find a very nice airstrike to shut him down. So at least, like you said, at the very least, they shut down some of Griffin's farm. But clearly, I think Astral are playing with some confidence, with some rhythm here at this point, landing a lot of these shots and able to play very aggressive.
3-man grouping in the mid lane from Astral Authority. Seems like Pyromancer could be the next focus, but for right now, Wolves still looking to just try and bully out Shaolin from the solo lane. And that was another thing, too, that we didn't really get to highlight in Game 1, was just the fact that Wolves kept Shaolin confined to that solo lane for so long that he was never really able to have an impact for his team.
Well, one more fight around the blue buff. Layers comes right down with the Anvil of Dawn and brings the hurting very early on in the fight, finds the first kill in favor of Astral Authority. They also force out Raiglaku, who can't afford to stick around. Shaolin Sins, unfortunately, will have to take yet another seat, and the blue buff will be going the way of Astral this time on the Chaos side, and they might want the Pyromancer on the back end as well.
And that's what that grouping was for early on. Astral knew that they were going to look for that blue buff invade, and whether or not Incontrol were prepared to respond to it is another story entirely. Astral Authority, one more time, they take down the blue buff, they take down the Pyromancer, and now this opens up the avenue for the team to continue to play super aggressive in dual lane because they don't have to worry about the right side of the map. Everything that's available has already been stripped away.
And even though this is tough and it's definitely in Astral's favor, they've been spreading Incontrol thin, I like the responses from them better than what we saw in Game 1. They've been trying to bring multiple members over to this blue buff spawn over and over. The problem is, on that fight, on the blue buff, they're just getting outplayed. Layers has been finding great ultimates in both of these engagements. The Fear No Evils haven't been doing quite enough. Even though they have the right answers, it just hasn't worked out.
Incontrol have also got to be a little bit more careful about spreading apart from each other when they recognize that Astral Authority are looking to play a little bit more aggressive. There's been a couple of moments where the team has had a tendency to group up on each other, and grouping up for a Thor ultimate, I think we all know that's never going to go very well for your team.
It's hard to have a good time when everyone's getting stunned, and Layers will do it to you every time if you give him the opportunity, as he finds the wall stun and the hammer to put a little bit of hurting on the Shaolin Sins over in the solo lane, who is a good bit behind Wolves, at least about a level or so, and about the same as Layers, who's been farming quite well.
These two Hunters enjoying their 1v1 exchanges in the duo lane.
Laughing.
I like it. I like to see the spunk, though, from Outbound still. Unswayed, undeterred, despite having already taken a couple of solo kills. I like that mentally he's still sticking to it.
But it's felt like a slow bleed here this whole game, as Chapo actually has to jump away from the engagement. It's good to know that he understands it can work that way, as he so often is jumping in, but he can also use it if he needs to disengage to get out of there. But one more time, Layers stripping away this blue buff. I mean, Shaolin Sins has not had a moment to breathe.
Shaolin Sins, I don't think he's even had a blue buff since the start of the game, the initial one that the
Maybe since the
map
start of the
spawns
set.
automatically.
Yeah. As they've been repeatedly stripped away from him. Kobe in trouble in the middle lane, has to use Aegis to get away.
Don't think it was just the egg, as the beads as well came with it.
Yeah.
Chapo with these belly flops has been so devastating at preventing the carries from ever feeling safe. And now Astral, with Kobe having been forced out of his relics, they're looking to play even more aggressive against Joltak. Apple won't connect on the bounce back, but Joltak cutting it close.
And neither will the Anvil of Dawn. That's 2 ultimates committed from Astral, and they find very little on the back end. It looks like they were at least able to go strip away the red buff, but aside from that, not much coming from it, as a rare out-of-sync moment there from Astral where they weren't able to connect everything together, though they do once again try and strip away this purple.
Good giddy up though from Outbound to ensure that he wouldn't catch the stun from the Belch out of Chapo. And even though the purple buff wasn't able to be confirmed by Incontrol, it's still just Incontrol showing signs of life throughout this match.
And showing that they know the right ways to respond, I think, or at least the right ways to get things started, even if within those engagements they've had some struggles. So they have to clean them up a little bit and not let these buffs continually get away from them, because bit by bit, slowly, Astral are chipping away.
I take that back, by the way. It looks like Outbound was actually able to confirm it. He just didn't pick it up initially because he wanted to go for the wave first to make sure that he didn't lose any more experience than what he's already been deprived of.
Looks like a Gold Fury call, though, from Astral. They've got Griffin at least starting it up for now, though Raigaku shows a little bit of presence around, and Astral think better of it. They were very cautious, I would say, in game 1 as well, patiently waiting on their opportunities. But once they got got a big lead in the match, then they started to push it. But still 33 minutes from them in game 1, even with their tremendous lead, they absolutely weren't taking any part of that game for granted. Wanted to make sure they guaranteed got their win over Incontrol.
Even right now, I don't think Astral Authority feel very comfortable having only a 3,000 gold lead. How many times, hold that thought though, at Layers going straight for the Berserker's Barrage,
Yep.
but he took out way too much damage too early on. Great cage from Joltak, gonna make sure that Layers is the only member that ends up dying in that engagement.
Yeah, unfortunately, blinking right with the hammer right into the Empty the Crypts and the Fear No Evil. No way for Layers to get out of that once he'd already committed the hammer. Though on the back end, looks like they were considering the Gold Fury, though they drop it. They want to look for this fight instead on the Joltak, who's playing the Odin. They can't quite lock him down, so they'll turn back instead to the Kuzenbo. And they've got 3 members here to look for a bit of a pinch, make that 4, as even Wolf shows up.
But Astral, with the man down disadvantage, they're not concerned in the slightest about still looking to push up into Incontrol's jungle. The red buff was available, and I was almost expecting Astral Authority to go for yet another buff invade. But somehow Incontrol managed to keep Astral Authority at bay. But that won't prevent Chapo from taking another look towards his Gold Fury. And with Incontrol having gone back to their normal farming, I don't think that they've realized this is even going on just yet.
Looks like they don't, and things might fall, at least for now. They'll force back Shaolin Sins, who's now rotating to try and be a part of these fights. At the very least, it's much harder to get bullied in lane once we're in these team fighting phase, but can he have the same impact that Wolves can as the Gold Fury once again being looked at? And it feels like Astral much more serious about it this time. Below half HP, Sins comes in with the Watery Grave and forces everyone out. A nice job saving the objective for now.
Joltak, though, could be the next target of focus. Layer's gonna get poked out pretty heavily. Raigaku and Griffin, Shaolin still trying to give chase, but a nice strike gonna get them both out of there.
Big damage from Moronic. He finds Raigaku first. Now Shaolin Sins trying to find his way out. A nice Empty the Crypts from Kobe covers everyone, but he does not slow down. Griffin slays in the dual lane. He's able to find one more by taking down the Unbots. Wolves bringing in the Cudgel as well. Slams it home and gets one more kill.
And you would expect that the small jungle corridor would be the prime tear up for Kobe, but that Unleash the Crypts just felt so awkwardly placed. It never really felt like much of an advantage there for Incontrol to fight inside such a narrow jungle avenue. And with 3 members having been picked off, that is a guaranteed Gold Fury every single day of the week here, Finch. I don't think Incontrol were even remotely concerned about trying to look for a steal after losing their best steal capabilities there from the Fear No Evil. And Kobe and Outbound clearly not feeling very comfortable with the thought of sacrificing their own lives at just a mere possibility of stealing that one away.
Yeah, not much opportunity for them to grab it anyway, so they rightfully recognize they've got to back out of it, but they got to do something here. Pyromancer now also under duress by Astral, and there's really no one to make control around. This objective goes down. They turn right to the Fire Giant. No more waiting. They're ready to start the fight. Shaolin Sins gets forced out by the wall. The rest of the team finally on their way, but Astral had baited them into a bad fight. Shaolin Sins has to use the ult.
Griffin went aggressive though with that agility and might not. He's going to be forced to airstrike out if he even gets it in time. Right now he's able to remain safe because Joltek only has the Horrific and the Odin cage, but now Raigaku's coming in with a big fear, no evil. Egg is perfectly timed and Griffin's still alive.
Just barely able to jump back out. A good job dropping down the apple to cripple out the Odin and at least buy themselves a bit of time. So Astral get too spread out in that fight, unable to find the FG. Already picks in control, do a great job responding.
Kind of surprised that Layers didn't choose to go in there on the T1 tower. 3 fairly low health targets from In Control sticking inside of the T1, but Layers may be a little bit concerned that had he actually decided to land down upon Shaolin, for example, he would have just been CC'd for entirely too long and ended up dead.
Great wall from Layers to at least find his way out, but I think if you're In Control, you can chalk that last fight up as a win. I mean, the Fire Giant doesn't go down, you don't really lose anybody, you just force Astral back out. They did, of course, lose, Pyro and Gold at the top of that, but that certainly could have been a fight that went worse. As In Control now feeling confident to look for an engagement here in the 2v2. Outbound and Joltak up against Chapo and Griffin, not quite able to lock down Chapo, so he makes his way right out of it.
But Astral Authority's duo lane know that they've got company here, and it's not the kind of company that they like to keep around. In Control, looking for that 4-man rotation over into duo. And with all the pressure that just took place in that right-hand side of the map, I'm not really surprised to see In Control trying to bring things back to Rain on the left-hand side, away from the Fire Giant, because at the very least, even if a fight were to go south in that sort of situation, Astral Authority might not have had enough time to immediately go for the Fire Giants since it's on opposing sides of the map.
I think you're right. Once they forced them to commit on the Shaolin Sins, and they were trying to chase him down while he was inside the watery grave, it might have been too tough for them to come back this early into the game. Only 18 minutes in, and yes, they have a substantial lead, but not quite enough where they would have felt confident going for it there. 7,000 gold, 10,000 experience. Maybe they'll feel better about it now. That lead is pretty good, but still, Astral have been patient all set long. Why change anything now?
Chapo still wanting to play aggressive, getting a little bit frisky there with the monkey in mid lane. Raigaku, though, not worried in the slightest. He knows that with speed buff around his waist, that belly flop is never going to be able to catch up to him. And so instead, it'll help his solo laner confirm his own blue buff. And that might be one of the few blue buffs that Shaolin has actually had a chance to see all game.
He's just happy to have one. I would imagine at this point it's been rough for him with this pressure from Wolves and Lair on that solo side of the map. And that's what they do so well, is they just limit your options. They strip your farm. As Chapo trying to find the solo kill against Outbound. A great ultimate from Raigaku will save the life of his hunter. They're going to commit quite a few ultimates trying to punish this Bacchus. They do trap him in the cage. The shell keeps him alive. But finally, Chapo gets punished for his aggression. But Layers is looking for the dunk.
That was a lot of ultimates for one Bacchus. And as for whether or not it's worth it, Astral Authority still managed to bring down the T1 tower. I would have to favor Astral in that exchange because they not only get Outbound and Joltek's ultimates, but Raigaku's Fear No Evil means that Astral Authority could look for a possible power play around the next Gold Fury that'll be spawning pretty shortly here.
About 40 seconds away. In Control are going to 3-man split their purple. They can't afford to do much else. Not in this situation, but this is what you were alluding to earlier, right? Where Astral have made some small oversteps, I think we could say here in this game. Chapo trying to solo down, the enemy hunter near their tier 2 tower might be a bit of an overreach. It does bait out quite a bit from their opposition, and they don't get too punished for it, but those are the areas I think where you could see a little bit to be tightened up by Astral.
It forces Astral to slow down their pacing, and Astral, I don't think they really like to do anything that involves the word slow. I mean, it's been very aggressive, quick, decisive moments from this team the whole way through. Game 1, coming into Game 2 here, they've got a little bit of that momentum swing going. And we already witnessed what can happen if Astral Authority are given even the slightest bit of a lead in these team fights because they got a couple of picks in the Pyromancer and they immediately start pulling fire. This is not a team that hesitates.
Not at all. When they see a real opportunity, they're happy to grab it. And they are at least posturing around this Gold Fury, trying to see what response they'll get from Incontrol, at least this time. And certainly they're here in great numbers, at least 4 on this side. Shaolin Sin still stuck trying to come through the middle lane. But at least at this point, there's no rush. Gold Fury has not been looked at yet. And Joltak able to get away from the knockup from Champa with the lead.
Astral, though, still poised around this Gold Fury. They very much want it, and Shaolin, he's been cut off by an excellent wall there from Layers. He'll be brought down before anybody else from Incontrol even has a chance to try and bail him out.
And the drive by Apple, just letting him know what they look like while he's watching it in black and white. That could have happened if you'd still been alive. They'll head now back to the Gold Fury, which has been bursted very, very quickly. Incontrol trying to find their way in, but Astral, yet again, very respectful. They drop it for a moment and continue to keep it leashed. They don't want to hold it too long and let Incontrol jump in for an easy steal.
Keep an eye out for Wolves, though. He's already looking for those backs to base, trying to teleport back in here. Nice fair no evil from Raiklatlu, but a little bit too preemptive. Instead, the Monkey's going to get caught out. Griffin slays with yet another kill. A double kill make it, because Joltak's going to end up following shortly after.
And that was a big dunk down from Layers. Huge damage to find one more kill. That one credit going over to Chapo. It's really only outbound, the lone Chiron Centaur left to try and stand, and now it's really up to Astral to go wherever it is that they want to go on the map here at this point. If they want to go for gold, they want to move to fire, it's all their choice. Shaolin Sins is back up. He's teleported back into the tier 2, and he wants to try and at least figure out where they are, but the rest of the team is on the FG.
Wolves is not going to let this Kuzenbo anywhere near the Fire Giant. He knows that Chapo and Griffin are still working on it, and Sumo Slam instead is just a brawl of the solo laners in the solo lane underneath the T2 tower, but that's everything that Astral Authority would have wanted and more. Baronic also with a solo kill onto Outbound in the dual lane, because by the way, not every single member of Astral went to the Fire Giant. They are spreading the map ever so thin. T2 tower falls in mid lane. Barani gets a solo kill. Fire Giant goes for Astral. It's just all falling apart at the same exact moment for Incontrol.
And they keep Shaolin Sins pinned underneath the tier 2 tower in solo. Remember, he teleported to that, and he hadn't gotten a walk outside of the range ever since because of the presence from Wolves. This is what Astral Authority can look like when they are given a substantial lead like this, because not only are they a very strong team together, they play well as a unit, but they're also strong individually. So when they break the map up like this, it's so hard for you to beat them in the one-on-ones or the two-on-twos. Oh, and you're also down 8,000 gold.
The fact that there was some form of a diversion in every single one of the lanes is just excellent communication from Astral Authority. That is a team with experience and veterans on it, because without that sort of knowledge, I don't think we see this team being anywhere near as comfortable to only send 2 members towards that Fire Giant.
And they certainly knew where everyone was, and it looks like they want the tier 2 tower and left to try and keep this siege going as we approach 27 minutes in what's been a very dominant set for Astral Authority so far. Tier 2 tower and left, a distant memory, no longer standing. Looks like they'll leave the tier 2 and right to Layers, and that minion wave, they should be more than enough to bring that one down. And the rest of Incontrol had to find some kind of way to group up and defend the left side Phoenix.
Layers can continue to split push to his heart's desire, but right now all focus on this left-hand side because Astral Authority actually falling incredibly low. Outbound going to bring down Barani, get a little bit of revenge going for himself, but Wolves is here to play, and he's not looking to mess around.
He is not done surging forward, but he might pay for it a little bit. Good damage coming back out from Covey in particular, but Layers up in the air the instant. Dunk right back down. Raigotlu finds a good kill of his own, but Layers immediately answers back. They don't have Griffins, they don't have Baronic, but they still got Layers for plenty of damage. They're going to keep right on pushing.
This left-hand Phoenix, though, might remain intact for now because without Griffin, Astral just doesn't have that range physical damage that they would need to actually break through the defenses that an Outwash can provide.
And so that will put on the brakes for the moment from Astral, but a good defense. And we saw this last game from Incontrol once they finally got to those Phoenix Sieges. And for me, what it is that the map shrinks a little bit for them in that situation. They're able to all know what the clear goal is, and the communication becomes easier. They look much better in that situation.
That was probably the most controlled situation that we have seen from Incontrol so far in this set. It felt like the first time that they were actually able to coordinate themselves well enough to get the initial jump start onto Astral Authority. And the fact that they took that exchange so far outside of their Phoenix range too, that's rather impressive.
And I think it helps they found that very early pick onto Moronic to start that one off. But we are sort of seeing the glimpses underneath this tremendous lead of Astrals that Incontrol's roster can put on at some points. Like when they have the cage, when they have Kobe with the Empty the Crypts, they're together, when they are able to drop down the Fear No Evil in the middle of it all after your relics have already been used, this is a tough team to fight into.
It did come off as a little bit of overconfidence, though, from Astral Authority, because they've been running rampant for the other 27 minutes of this game. That was the first time that they ever really felt like they encountered a brick wall.
I think so, as a unit the first time. I mean, we've seen maybe individually some oversteps, but that time as a group, they pushed a little bit too far. Also, Layers wasn't really a part of the fight right from the beginning. He was able to come in on the back end and find some very nice cleanup kills, but they had to fight without him for a while, and I think that they just overstepped a bit. So instead, they'll group up, slow it down just a little bit. They'll leave one in the middle lane. Looks like they'll put that duty to Wolves, while the rest of the team pushes up and do up.
It's crazy to think that every single member of Astral Authority is fully 6 items slotted, though, at this point.
That is pretty crazy.
And the members of Incontrol are still working on it, and yet they were able to put up that strong of a defense against the likes of Astral Authority. So now it almost begs the question of, will this outwash be enough to stop Astral Authority every single time they're looking for the siege?
He's so strong on the defense, Opwash, isn't he? And they just need him to get maybe a few more items online. I mean, really, at this point, he's 5 slotted, is Kobe right now in this Opwash. You don't need a ton more than that to really get the maximum value out of him. That 6 item is certainly nice, but we often call it that luxury slot for a reason. At 5 items, Opwash is definitely going to be doing plenty of damage.
I think it just has to be an all-in commitment from Layers to seek out Kobe in the back lines, force that Unleash the Crypts preemptively, and make it so that Astral Authority won't have to worry about that Odin Outwash Wombo combo.
Or the Fear No Evil Opwash, or the Watery Grave Opwash. As long as Opwash is a part of it, you don't want to be there. So yeah, I'm 100% agreeing. If Layers can find this Opwash early, that would all but end any hopes for Incontrol to try and slow down their push. And they will grab this Fire Giant without any real trouble. No way for Incontrol to come out and even look at this.
I don't blame Incontrol in the slightest. I think that was the exact move that they needed to make if they want to keep their chances of stretching things to a Game 3 alive, because the jungle fights just are not for them. Every single time they try to take up an engagement in the jungle, it has been very lopsided in Astral Authority's favor. So their best bet is to play off of these Phoenixes, because that was the first and only time we've really seen a true team fight engagement go the way of Incontrol.
They're going to give it a try on the right side. This time they are leaving one more in the middle lane, but it will be Layers. He has the ultimate to come join the fray at any time at the Anvil of Dawn, so no trouble. But it's Wolves who jumps in right away, looks for the knockup, and Kobe certainly is the target on the back side, and that's left the front side of the fight even, where they don't have to worry about the Opwash.
Great Humbat's ultimate, though, to keep everybody at bay, but Layers still finds Raiglaku after the fact, but it won't go down without a fight. Layers with the double kill now as Wolves cleans up outbound, and Fish, this could very well be the end of it for Incontrol.
It's just Joltak and Kobe, a lot on the shoulders of those two to try and keep this game alive. Griffin in the mid lane, pushing down the mid Phoenix. Right Phoenix has already exploded and fallen down to ash. No way for it to help out any further. Wall lands on Kobe. Beads and Aegis both come out quickly. A nice cage comes out, but it's immediately destroyed by the Titan. And now Astral Authority have a chance to send Incontrol home. Griffin finds Joltak, and no way for Incontrol to defend any further. Astral continue to move on.
And it's just devastation here for Kobe and the gang on Incontrol. They fought so hard to get to this moment here today, Finch, and Astral Authority just did what they've been doing all season long and absolutely dominating.
They absolutely did. Continued the dominance we've seen from them all season long in the online phases. Really, aside from Spring, this team has looked very strong. I don't mean Spring Online, just Spring, that's that summer event where they came in, had some troubles up against a rival. But other than that, it has been all Astral all the time. And as usual, they do it as a unit. Wolves in lane, just beating whoever's in lane up against them. Layers landing nearly everything inside those team fights. And Chapo baiting perfectly for the rest of his team. I mean, a great play.
No hard feelings, though, between these two teams. I mean, like we mentioned before this match even started. It's 40 degrees outside, and Chapo's still got to make sure that he's flexing.
It absolutely is very cold outside. It's been a big issue. And not Chapo, though. He ain't worried. Not my man. But certainly, when you're able to flex like that in game, you can wear whatever you want. Really strong performance from all of Astral.
I think that Astral just kind of had Incontrol's number from the start. They just seemed very well prepared for what this roster tried to bring up against them. And even with Coving having played with this team in the past, I just don't think that his former knowledge was enough to carry them through this one.
It was not enough here. Astral, the ones that would be moving on.